Drew Walton is an internationally certified alcohol and drug counselor and also holds certifications in first aid, CPR, nonviolent crisis intervention, applied suicide intervention, and is a certified mental health crisis first responder. Thank you for being with us, Drew, and thank you for being a part of that documentary. This is a very hot and serious topic.
Yes, it is, and thank you for having me here.
Yes, I just watched that clip, and it just reminded me how severe prescription drug abuse is. And for those who are watching right now, can you just give an explanation of what that looks like and what that sounds like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, as the clip suggests, it's kind of ominous, and it definitely is. You know, prescription drug abuse is something that is very, very scary today. And the reason why it's so scary is exactly that. It's hard for you to realize initially you're addicted. You get in an accident, you're in pain, something happens that leads you to get a prescription for these addictive painkillers traditionally, and you take them doctor prescribed. And before you know it, you're developing a physical dependence. Your body is relying on these painkillers. And it's not until later, when you try to stop them, that you find out actually how hard it really is. And that's kind of the first stages leading to addiction.
Do people realize when they become addicted to it? Like, is it, you know, as we were speaking before, I grew up during the crack epidemic era. So it was, someone made it, it was illegal, it was dangerous to go get the drug, and it did much harm. But like you said, this is for someone, a regular person, maybe like myself, who can just have a back pain, have a surgery, take these pills, and then without realizing it, it gets really, really severe. When do they know that they've become addicted?
I think it's very challenging for someone to know when they become addicted in the early phases. I think one of the main premises of addiction is denial. Denial is a huge component of addiction, where people are unaware of the negative consequences that their behavior is having. So that said, if they're abusing or taking more of the medication than they're supposed to be doing, they're thinking, well, what's the big deal if I'm taking one extra? My back's hurting a little extra today, so I took one more, right? No big deal. As you said, it's not crack cocaine. It's not heroin. It's not all these.
It's not meth. Like we said before, they're not making it in their back room. It's actual in their.
It's FDA approved, and it's on the shelves in our pharmacies, and it's prescribed by our medical doctors, who we trust with their judgment is, you know, here's what you need to take, and here's how you should take it. And we don't realize how dangerous that pill is that we're taking home and putting in our medicine cabinets.
And what's happening and what we're seeing is more and more youth are becoming addicted to prescription. How is that even possible?
Well, I mean, kids are naturally curious, you know, they're experimental. You know, I think everyone would always say that, you know, marijuana was the drug that you'd experiment with, and it's the gateway, but it's illegal. Prescription drugs, it's perfect. It's accessible. It's in a lot of people's medicine cabinets at home, and it's legal. To them, it's no different than, you know, taking a sip of dad's beer, or, you know, grabbing some wine out of the refrigerator when mom and dad are out for a dinner party. It's in the cabinet, it's legal, it's safe, they know other people are taking it, so they think, why not? And they don't realize, of course, the potential destructive path they're heading down when they experiment in that way. Because
they're not only experimenting with the pills, because now they're probably smoking marijuana, mixing it with liquor, right? Because they're in a party setting, and that can be horrific, that combination, because sometimes if you drink pills with alcohol, it can lead to death.
Yeah, of course. You know, the warning labels are there. You know, on these bottles, they go so far as to tell you, do not operate heavy machinery. You know, do not drive a vehicle when you're using OxyContin. Do not mix with alcohol when you're using OxyContin. It tells you that it can impair your judgment, cause drowsiness, and it does let you know that it has addictive properties.
And what are the effects of prescription drugs on teenagers?
Well, one of the biggest effect that a prescription drug can have on a teenager, and I think I'll focus predominantly on things like OxyContin, opiates, that's the big one, which, you know, synthetically is produced from the same stuff that actually makes heroin, believe it or not. Wow. So in essence, it's kind of like heroin that is safely made in a pill. And when you go and you take it in your youth, it slows all your emotional judgment, your emotional development. So you have an individual who's 15 and starts using drugs, starts using, prescription drugs until they're 20. Well, when they're 20, they behave like they're 15 years old, and it's because it stunts their emotional development. They trust the drug to make them feel good rather than learning how to cope with life's challenges on their own.
And just as we saw the young lady who was saying, the drug was my boyfriend, it was everything to me. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, she's so young. She's just a teenager, and she's thinking that this is, her everything. Now, the topic of marijuana has been also on the rise because it's been, legalized in certain areas of America. And do people really think that, oh, it's not as serious of a drug, the abuse of it?
I think many people think that. I would think that the people who have been involved in studies and worked, on the front lines with people who are suffering from the negative consequences of marijuana abuse would probably be the ones who would think this is a problem. I personally work and have worked with thousands of patients who have come through treatment programs for marijuana abuse, who are now dealing with severe mental health disorders, psychosis, bipolar, schizophrenia. That marijuana was a large contributing factor to that.
Wow. That is amazing to hear, because once again, you say people, they're just like, oh, this is, it doesn't really have any, real problems. You're going to be relaxed. You're going to be eating. You're going to be fine. There's no real danger to it. But please, we must understand that legalizing this is just going to make it, I feel like it's going to make it worse. Do you think it will?
It's hard to say if legalizing it will make it worse
than what it is now.
Yeah, I think there needs to maybe be an educational component to it.
Yes.
I think the best defense for anyone is being aware. We do that today. Everyone is into eating healthy, staying away from the carbs, going to the gym, because we know that so many illnesses are caused by bad diet and lack of exercise. I think the same idea would be present with marijuana, educating people, what can happen if you use marijuana. And right now, I think it's a lot of skeptics who just say, weed's the best, it's so groovy and it makes me relax and it's a lot of fun. That's not an argument against the fact that it causes mental health issues, that it causes lung cancer, mouth cancer, and all the same forms that cigarette smoking does.
Wow. Thank you so much, Drew, for educating us and educating our audience.